We are a fiscal committee and we talk about the cost to the state and local units of government, but there's also costs built in here to the individual. And I'm going to use a family member, my mother, as an example. One of the advantages of the internet, while we're talking here, I looked up a bit of the family tree, and my great-grandfather was born in 1859 in Austin, Minnesota. It looks to me like when I look up the family tree here that they arrived in Austin, Minnesota between 1853 and 1857. The reason I point that out, my mother then was born in Austin, Minnesota as well, and the family was among the original settlers of Austin. She happened to be a home birth and was attended by a doctor. The doctor didn't file the papers for a birth certificate. My mother worked, they moved to the Twin Cities, and she worked for many years for the Bloomington schools, and when she retired, she wanted to take a trip to Europe. She needed a passport. To get the passport, she needed a birth certificate. One didn't exist. But you can get one if you can get three ways of verifying that you were born in the United States, or in this case in Minnesota. One of the things you can look at is a newspaper article to get one of the three to see if you were identified as having been born on the date that you were told you were born or whatever. All the Austin newspaper had was baby girl born on August 2nd, 1917. So that wasn't enough. Fortunately, she had two older brothers. They could swear a statement that she was, in fact, a U.S. citizen born here. We were able to get a 1920 census that listed her, but that all took work. And I forget what the third one was, but we did have to, we were able to use school records. But my point is that took us 2 years before we were able to get all of that resolved and get her, in her case, her birth certificate so she could get her passport. It took several trips to Austin, Minnesota. It took, because she was living up here, just a whole lot of work. Well, now we're making that kind of a requirement on people that are in situations where they don't have a birth certificate readily available. Some of us, or probably all of us, received some information from the League of Women Voters. The reason I mentioned my mother in that information, they said something like 18% of the senior citizens don't have picture ID. So that's photo ID. That's one problem, and I just shared with you what my mother went through to just kind of get things started. So it's not an easy process sometimes. The other thing is young people. They pointed out between 18 and 26, there's about 20% of them that don't have a photo ID. So you're really putting a lot of burden on individuals who are U.S. citizens, are entitled to vote, to get that photo ID. So there's not only the cost to state and local units of government, then my point is that there's a whole lot of cost to individuals. And my mother was probably one. She was very interested in government and politics. She probably would have went through all the hoops. Might have missed an election, being that it took 2 years, but she probably would have done that because she was active in the League of Women Voters and just followed politics very closely. But a lot of people probably won't have the resources or won't have the motivation, if you will, to go through all of that simply to get a photo ID so they can vote. So I have a lot of concerns about this bill, and I would urge a no vote.
Thank you.